Welcome to how to build a split stick deadfall. I'm going to show you in about 10 minutes how to build a split stick deadfall. As you're about to see, we've got a split stick deadfall already set up, and it has three parts. The part that holds up the rock itself, which is the deadfall, which would be crushing any prey that takes the bait off the bait stick. We've got a split stick. It looks like a solid stick a little bit, but we'll zoom in. And we can see here that it's two separate sticks held together and not being allowed to hinge off of one another or cantilever off of one another with a bait stick. It is fairly simple to build this trap. You only need a few parts to make it. I tend to use three different types of blades to make things easier. You don't need to use all three. And a fairly large stick. I usually go about 9 to 12, 13 inches. You have to be cognizant of deadfall that you'll be using, however. So don't go so big that once you get it completed, you have to trim it down on both ends or one end in order to get it to fit underneath the rock or log or whatever you're using to crush the animal. Anyway, I use a 4 to 5 inch blade, which is my everyday carry out in the wilderness. I usually use a Swiss Army knife just for the saw, although I can use a Swiss Army knife for the entire thing, or my everyday carry for that matter. And I like to use an axe. This is a Fisker's, I believe a 14 inch, just to make things easy. Again, although you don't need all three of those pieces. You also need a trigger stick. You have to be careful not to get it too short or too long. Too short is usually the problem. Too long you can always trim up. But again, be cognizant of the weight. I usually use a stick that's about as long as the deadfall is, so I can always trim just a little bit off of it. The first thing I do is I baton the wood, and I try to get about an inch out of the wood to use as the split stick. So you can see me here batoning using a Coster's Bushcraft, a piece of wood. I'm trying to get the edges flat. It's just so much easier once you baton both sides of the pieces of wood to get the bait stick to hold tight and will drop crisply when it drops. Okay, we've got one piece of wood then. This is an example using one piece of wood, flat on both sides. I'm showing you here some distance. I've got it flat on both sides, and I've done some trimming here on this piece of wood too. You can see it's a little bit crooked. This shouldn't be a problem because as you notice, the side that's facing the knife, that's an Aurora made by Bark River. You can see the side that's facing the knife is flat. The rounded sides on the back side can be trimmed up later or can be left alone. So now we've got a piece of wood trimmed on both sides, very well flat. Showing you the length of the piece of wood by putting it next to the knife. And then I've also, if you've noticed, batoned and trimmed off the top side of that piece of wood. Let me zoom in here. And you can see it's flat. That's where the bait stick is going to hold. And that's where that crisp release is going to be allowed to be done. So this is what we've looked like once we've got the large piece of wood trimmed down. And if you look here, I'll zoom in on the right-hand side of this. You notice that I've also trimmed a bevel into the wood or a wedge into the wood there. You're going to see that the purpose of that here in a minute. I've got a close-up of that bevel there sitting on top of the Fiskers. You don't need to have that bevel too sharp. You do need to have it as sharp as the notch that you're going to cut in the other piece of wood. You don't want it too wide so it's just kind of barely sitting on there. But you don't need it so sharp that you can shave with it. You can see I got about a 1/16 of an inch here. There. I like to leave it like that because it seems to be more robust and it can handle more drops on the deadfall. Once you've got one of these, and I'm making this out of oak, once you've got one of these, you can use them many, many times. The bait stick might break eventually because the deadfall will fall on the bait stick, but once you've got it made, you can use it many times. And if you're out in the bush for a long period of time, you're going to want to do that and minimize your output to maximize your caloric intake. Here are the two sticks once they've been cut apart. I simply use a Swiss Army knife and the saw portion on it there. You can use your everyday carry. It takes a little bit longer, especially with oak. To make a good clean cut, I use a Swiss Army knife saw. Once those are cut apart, what you need to then create is the ledge for the bevel to fit against. So you take your Swiss Army knife, use the saw again, cut into the top stick there, making about a 1/16 to 1/8 inch cut, getting ready to trim that back and create that ledge. This is how you can create that ledge in a much quicker fashion. You simply just baton it down carefully, cutting it down. You'll have to trim it up a little bit as well, but you're going to want to take about, again, 1/16 to 1/8 inch off, leaving yourself room for the bevel to fit against. There I am trimming that bevel up. It doesn't take very long. Once you've got that bevel cut, you can see how one lays against each other. And what you do then at that point is you scribe a line on the bottom piece, on the beveled piece, and you're getting ready to cut that back using the saw to create a ledge. What that ledge will allow you to do is hook together the two pieces. Once you've got that line cut back, you then just trim back. I've got a V cut there. It's not as elegant as it could be, but you've got a V cut there. To allow room for that bait stick. You don't actually necessarily need that. You can put the bait stick just on the side of the trap. I like to put it underneath on the bottom portion of this V, and what it allows it to do is for the bait stick to kick downward, and that's kind of seems to be the natural motion that the animal wants. If you put the bait on there, he'll put his front paws up on there and push the bait stick downward, triggering the trap. Once you get the split sticks done and you've got that completely all set up, what you need to do now is just put together the bait stick. I've got an unfinished bait stick on the top and a finished bait stick on the bottom. Simply trim up one side, creating a sharp edge or a sharp point on the left-hand side, and then you're going to want to cut kind of a U-shape, a wide U-shape. Now pay attention to the width of the split sticks when they're put together. That's how wide you want this U-shape to be when you are ready to put the whole thing together. Measure it carefully. The tighter you get it, the better. It will then pop right off of there when the animal takes the bait. You can see a close-up here, and I'll zoom in even further to show you how that works. You can see how you could put the bait stick right on the side of that, but when you've got that notch cut away, it gets right on the bottom and allows for a crisp release. Now again, notice how I don't have any slop. You can create a little bit of slop there. A little bit wider is better, but you don't want it to be a lot wider. You want it to be nice and tight. What that allows you to do is kind of have a good pinch fit, allowing you to set the trap up a little bit easier. Here is the trap completely set up. And now you see why I use a curved stick. I like to use a curved trigger stick. It allows you to set the split sticks at a 45-degree angle or so, which allows when the trap is triggered to kick those sticks out of the way, not allowing any gap to be presented to the animal for escape underneath the deadfall. Use a curved trigger stick, and that allows you to keep the trigger stick off the ground and yet get it near the point where the weight touches the ground. You want to get that bait stick as close to the V'd portion here, and I'll zoom in on that portion. You want to get it very close so the animal's very much underneath the weight when he triggers the stick. You don't want it towards the end. It might give him time to get out and things like that. Here is a close-up of the trigger stick, the bait stick, as it's holding together the two pieces of the split stick. Notice how I didn't leave any room for slop on the left and right of that. What that allows me to do is simply put the trigger stick over the two split sticks, and then I don't have to try to feel like I'm trying to do too many things with two hands. I simply hold it all together with one hand, stick it underneath the stick, find a good point where it holds it up, and the rock holds right away. It's really easy to set up. My hands are out from underneath the weight, and if it does trigger itself, I don't get my hands crushed like sometimes happens with this figure 4. There is the trap getting ready to be tripped, and I'm just going to try to show you these last ones here in a fairly quick succession. Here's the trap. This is just a stick that I'm going to be using to trigger the trap. There it is at the moment of contact. Just a little bit of pressure kicks that bait stick out, and you can see the bait stick is falling in this picture, and the split sticks are kicking way out to the left. And you'll see it under the last frame. See how that is not going to stack up on top of each other? The only thing that's going to be under that trap is the bait stick and the animal itself. And that bait stick is only about 3/16 of an inch. That's a fairly heavy sandstone rock there. It would crush pretty much any animal, even mice, that might present themselves underneath this trap. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation and understand how it works. Definitely drop me a line if you've got some questions, and I'll try to clarify anything that I missed here.